The recidivism rate right now is 70%. So 70% of the people who are released on parole come back to jail, come back to the prison. And that's unacceptable. It's totally unacceptable. But
Joe Gunn took a close look at the prison system in California and came away shaking his head. He served as executive director of the Corrections Independent Review Panel, and guided by his perspective as a former cop with the LAPD and his experience as executive director of the Los Angeles Police Commission, his panel authored an extensive report, including recommendations to fix what it was he saw as a looming disaster.
Well, when Governor Schwarzenegger first was elected after the recall, he had made up his mind that he wanted a major shakeup of all the departments in California. And of course, the number one department that was always in the worst trouble was the Department of Corrections. At the time, a $6 billion budget, total chaos. We looked at over 400 documents that had been previously printed about corrections. We interviewed over 400 people. So we've got a pretty diverse opinions on what changes should be made.
So we asked him to tell us what changes should be made. What did he find as a result of his investigation?
Well, I always kid people and tell them that had I known what kind of shape this organization was in, I'm not sure I would have taken this assignment. But it was almost like basic management 101. There was nothing up there. They had no head of personnel. They had no head of training. There's no fiscal operations officer. There's no risk management. There's no management development. When I reviewed the contract that the union had with corrections, I found out things like the guards union assigns 70% of the assignments. Management only gets to assign 30%. On overtime, the guards decide who works overtime because it's done on seniority. Doesn't mean it's the best person. It just means it's going to be the most expensive person. So everywhere we looked, we found out discipline, use of force. There was no uniformity. There was no accountability. There was no transparency. This was an organization that was in total ruin. The organization structure of corrections at the time we did this report was totally unworkable. I mean, as I said, there was no transparency. There was no accountability. Nobody knew what their job was. There wasn't even a job description for a warden.
We asked Mr. Gunn if he was hampered by limited budgets or warned to stay away from politically sensitive issues.
We were given carte blanche. I'll never forget Governor Schwarzenegger himself coming around to see us and saying, I don't want you to move boxes. I want you to blow up the boxes. So come in with anything that you think is going to work for this organization. But we were the corrections group, and we were acknowledged to be the group that was dealing with the biggest problem.
Okay, so what were the biggest problems his panel discovered? It appears that the CCPOA, the California Correctional Peace Officers Association, the Corrections Union, runs the show, not government officials or management.
On staffing, the union has the right to assign 70% of all assignments. The management only gets to assign 30%. That is a relationship that I have never heard of in all my years in law enforcement. But the union doesn't trust management, and management doesn't seem to trust the union, and so they're always at odds. They had things where before you can issue a new training order, it had to go before this subcommittee in corrections. Half of the members were corrections union people. Well, the windup is hardly anything ever came out. There was no training that came out because there was 3 against 3. And so they couldn't get past anything to get out of that to improve things. We found out that when the Secretary of Corrections appointed a warden, that he had to be confirmed by the Senate. And we heard from several people that the Senate would call up the union and vet these names through them, which of course the union is not going to put anybody in there that is anti their positions, and pro-management. So yeah, the legislature has to share their responsibility for the reason we're at today. And the governor's office and his predecessors have to share it because they've agreed to the contracts that gave away management power. They have not come forward with any concrete plans for reform other than building more prisons?
What was the union response to the report from the review panel? We asked him, did they blast it for the reforms that he recommended?
You know, the union has never come out vocally and publicly in attacking any part of our recommendation. But the bottom line is this. Unions do what unions do. They're in business to get the best deal for their constituents. This union in particular has unlimited resources, millions of dollars to donate into political funds. So they are perhaps one of the greatest powerhouses in Sacramento. It's very difficult to make reform when a legislature knows that the union might object and pour money into his opponent's campaign. It's very, very difficult. So the union plays a significant role, as they should, but it is the lack of courage on the part of the legislators and the executive office, current and past, who have not resisted the pressure from the union to make the adequate changes and reforms that corrections needs.
So where is this report? With all the furor about prison overcrowding and prison race riots and the Mexican mafia calling the shots from inside the various prisons, what has happened with this $1 million report?
We delivered copies of this report to the governor's office, and we delivered copies to the secretary of the Department of Corrections. So there's where the reports are.
There's where the reports are? Has there been any response? The governor was all fired up and wanted this panel to investigate. Apparently, he didn't like the results.
Some of his staff was unhappy with the tone of the report. They felt it was too adversarial. And of course, our response was, you've got a disaster going on up there. You know, we have to get people's attention, and we can't do it by writing a goody-goody report praising everyone when it's not worth it. They don't deserve praise, and the system doesn't deserve praise. So
we asked Mr. Gunn if there was any response by anybody to the report of the Corrections Independent Review Panel.
They had corrections after we issued our report, had a week-long seminar, and after that submitted a reorganizational plan to the Little Hoover Commission, which later went to the legislature, which was cosmetic. They adopted almost nothing of our recommendations. Of course, they didn't adopt a civilian commission, and in fact, the then secretary consolidated power within his office. Nothing on development, nothing on management development, nothing on risk management, nothing on chief fiscal officer. They still don't have a chief fiscal officer, even though they're spending now $8 billion a year.
The California prison system is the third largest penal system in the country, costing billions of dollars every year. And in spite of the money spent, our prisons are known to be the command and control center of the Mexican mafia, who run the gangs in all the major cities in California. From San Quentin to Chino, the correction system is fraught with riots, murders, scandals, and chaos. Who's liable for this deplorable situation? We asked Joe Gunn if he thought our elected officials should be held accountable.
Well, I think the chaos is the direct responsibility of the inaction of the legislature and the executive office. This is going back several terms. Yeah, they're directly responsible. They're the ones who have neglected what's going on in the prisons. They're the ones who have made themselves susceptible to campaign donations from the union, which gave the unions much more influence.
And now the problem is turning into a crisis. The feds are coming.
Currently, a judge is saying that unless the overcrowding is solved by this summer, he's going to take over corrections. I think taking over corrections is a disaster. I mean, we have it in Los Angeles. We have the police department working under a consent decree. It's not, if you do your job and make reforms, it's not necessary. And certainly they had their chance to make their reforms. We've given them a 3-year notice on things they have to do, but nothing's been done. And so what they're doing is they're inviting federal receivership of the whole correction systems. I'm not too sure that will result in reforms, and additionally, it's going to increase the cost to the citizens of California.
We want to know what you, the viewers, think. Please respond to our survey and leave your comments below. Number 1, do you approve of the governor spending $1 million for a 5-month investigation and report on the correction system that he's never made public? Yes or no? Number 2, Should the corrections union be in charge of work assignments within the prison instead of management? Yes or no? Number 3. Since the elected politicians have failed to address the problems in the Department of Corrections, would we be better off having a federal judge running the prisons? Yes or no? Please respond to our survey and be sure to leave your comments below. And if you'd like a copy of the executive summary of the report, please contact us by sending us an email or from the website. Thank you. As you can see, full disclosure is not in the business of distorting the news. We're not in the business of trying to convince our viewers, only to inform them. We're a nonprofit educational organization. We provide the platform and the vehicle where you can hear the various perspectives. It's up to you, the viewers, to determine what is right and what is wrong. If you want full disclosure to continue to shine the light of truth on important issues that the mainstream media just won't do, then we need your support. There are so many important issues facing our communities, our state, and our nation. And your tax-deductible contribution can help us get the word out to continue informing the public. You are invited to join the Friends of Full Disclosure. Your support will help assure that we can reach more and more people and improve the production quality of our programs. All you have to do is send us the much-needed support using PayPal. Just click on the link below and join at whatever level you can afford. Our goal is government accountability. When the people are informed on the issues, then the people in government must do what is right, because they know we're watching. Together we can make a difference, but we need your support to continue bringing you the news behind the news. Please contribute what you can. Thank you.